Well, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is episode 22 of Codebase Alpha, and this evening we're going to be looking at some more aspects of the Microsoft bot framework. So last time we basically started off with a sample project, which was the Echo bot, which is something which you can create as a template with the bot framework, and we kind of built out a bit of functionality from there, and I'll show you what we did and how far we got. But the first thing I want to do is really kind of talk to you about how the site which we're using, which is the Azure bot site, all the documentation has changed since last Wednesday. So having watched this site kind of change, it was a bit of a surprise. So what happened is that they pushed out version 4.4 of the framework, and it kind of changed all the documentation. They went through and updated the whole thing, and it kind of started to change the structure of some of the code. It's not exactly changing any of the functionality, but certainly structurally the code has changed in their sample projects. So what I'd like to do over the next couple of streams, probably off stream, is actually start to move towards the structure of the code which Microsoft are now showing in their samples. And I actually started that. So I started that over the weekend, just started to make a few minor changes, and I'd like to show you what those changes are. So let's go and have a look at the code. So here we are in the code, and this is the ChatBot class, ChatBoxBot. So it's the main class. And if you look over here in the solution, one of the things that was there last time we looked at the code was something called ChatBoxBot accessors. And this accessor class is something which no longer appears in the samples. And really getting rid of it does now simplify things quite considerably. The other thing that's missing is the .bot file. So that's no longer kind of recommended. Noodle, thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the stream. I don't know if we've seen you before, so if we have, apologies, but welcome indeed. Thanks for joining us. Yes, so as I was saying, the .bot file is no longer recommended, and actually I've moved all of the configuration back to the app settings.json. So simplifies, basically all the changes have simplified things really. There are a few there's lots of new methods that have been created, which we're not going to be using this evening, but we will move to, as I say, part of the structural changes over the coming streams. So I'll just quickly show you what we've done. The first thing, if we go to startup, the startup file is now much simpler than it was. So there's an awful lot of stuff that's gone. Basically, configure services now fits in one screen. So this is configure services now. Gareth Hubble, hi, thank you for joining us. Good to see you. Yeah, so you know Gareth Noodle, that's good. So as I was saying, this is really kind of terribly simple now. Basically what we're doing here is simply creating a data store, which is in this case is a memory storage, which we're using for our dev test. We create our conversation and our user states as we do before using the data stores, and now we simply add the singletons, and that's basically all we do. Those get injected into our chatbot, and I'll show you how we use this. So we no longer have this complicated code we had before with the accessor class. Also, now we're getting our values for the app ID and the app password from app settings, which means we can use our user secrets to hold them in locally. Now we haven't got any an app ID or an app password set because we're still in test. We haven't moved on to Azure yet, but it really does simplify things. And now we just pass those in here in the credential provider, where before there was quite a lot of code to extract that information out of the .bot file. Over in the app settings, what was in there before, there was a bot secret and a bot ID, I think it was. That has all gone. Now it's just these two parameters, the Microsoft App ID and the Microsoft App Password, which will be set from Azure basically when we get that far. And this is where we'll add future configuration options, such as when we implement Q&A Maker, we'll put the information about that in here. If we do any kind of natural language processing with Lewis, we'll add all that information in here. So it simplifies things, and we get to leverage our user secrets when we're working locally, because a lot of this information, of course, is sensitive. And before, you had to encrypt your bot file, which seemed a bit of a pointless thing to have to do when you've got all this stuff in .NET Core to support that user secrets concept. So we've now got a very much simplified startup file. Similar over in the main ChatBoxBot file, we simply now inject in the conversation state and the user state, as you can see here. And then what the accessor class was doing before was basically it was setting up these state property accessors, and now we simply create those here in the constructor. Okay, so we've basically simplified things by adopting the new way of working, and there's even more stuff we can do as we start to use some of the new features of 4.4. Now, as you can, if I show you the project file over here, you can see we've moved to version 4.4 throughout. Oops, we'll do that. There we go. So we're at the latest version, at the bleeding edge, as it were, and so there are changes we're going to need to kind of apply, but we're going to do this stepwise. The whole kind of approach to implementing this bot framework bot has been to do it stepwise, and we're going to continue with that process. So just to kind of recap, the bot is going to be a dev streams bot, where we're going to be able to ask the bot about live coding streams, and hopefully we're going to extend this beyond what the Alexa skill could do, because we are more in conversation mode. Okay, so let's get some music in the stream, just to kind of relax into this. So hopefully we should be able to hear that, and I'll just put my headphones on so I can hear it as well. So if that's too loud, let me know in chat, and I'll just dot that down a bit. Okay, so what we're going to do today, well, I've got my running notes in front of me. So the title of the episode is Rich Cards and Adaptive Cards. So we're going to start looking at the kind of making our user interface look a bit smarter. It won't be the full kind of the full Monty, as it were. We won't be going the whole hog and putting graphics and things in just this stage. We'll do eventually, but we're going to make it look a bit better than it does at the moment. But I'll just show you what it does currently. So if we start the process here, the other thing, having got rid of the bot file, we can no longer start our emulator using the bot file, so we have to actually go and grab the URL that we're running at. And over here we have our bot emulator, and this is the latest version of this as well, so we upgraded this, and we just paste our URL in there, and it's API messages is the place we need to go to, and we'll connect to that bot. And here we are, we're connected to the bot, and hopefully you can read this. Unfortunately it's kind of white on grey, so hopefully you can read it. So we've got a welcome message, which is the first thing we did last time, is create a welcome message, and then we've got a menu. Currently just 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I type 2, then it's going to ask me for the name of the streamer. If I put in Gareth Hubble, then it simply echoes that back to me. You selected Gareth Hubble here, and then puts the menu back again. If I choose the other ones, then it just echoes back what I selected, but you notice rather oddly it doesn't put the menu up. But if I type anything in, it will actually put the menu up. So this process where we clicked on number 2, and it asked us what the name of the stream we're interested in, that's in the bot terminology is called a dialogue, and the other ones, the echoing ones, were just dummy dialogues we created. So let's go back and have a look at that code. Okay, let's shrink this down a bit. Okay, so we're actually working in a public method here, which is the only method defined for the interface iBot, and this interface defines this onTurn async method, and it takes in a turn context. Now what it means by a turn context is it's a turn in the conversation. So I type and the bot responds. That is a turn. So every time we interact with the bot, we create a turn and potentially a new instance of this ChatBoxBot class is created. So you can never guarantee it's the same instance that's processing the turn that's happening at the moment. However, we have, with these state accessors we created here, we have the opportunity to create state. And there's two types of state we're using in this bot. There's conversation state, and conversation state is simply retained for the length of a conversation. So when you start using the bot to when you end using the bot. So that's a conversation, and then you get user state. And user state is basically what follows a user around. So in theory, if we were persisting user state to a database or a data store somewhere, permanent storage, then whenever you then re-engage with this bot, it will remember you and will load your state. In this case, we're using memory storage, so obviously at the end, when we finish the conversation and close down the bot, then it forgets everything. But that's all we need just to get this thing kind of working and tested. We don't need to go for using blob storage or Cosmos DB or anything like that, which are the two options. So you either have memory, which for development, and then you can move to a blob storage, which is probably the most cost-effective with Azure, or you can have a Cosmos DB as your storage, and which is probably more expensive, I should imagine, but probably more flexible. So what we've done here is we've created two properties: conversation dialog state, which is using this dialog state class, which is a built-in class within the framework, and that's going to keep track of the state of our dialogue. So when we kick a dialogue off, it's going to know whether we're just started, we're in the middle of a dialogue, or we've ended a dialogue. And then we've got user selections, which is what we're going to use to track what the users have chosen about themselves, basically, for this dialogue with the bot. User selections currently contains just streamer name. This is the streamer name they've selected to ask about, but we're going to put some more things in there. And we have some dialogues here. So we have this dummy dialogue, and we have our when next intent dialogue. That's what we're going to be working on for most of the stream this evening. However, I want to start off with this menu that we produce at the start of the interaction. So we have here the welcome message, so that's how we kind of define that. And then we have display main menu async. And we're using something called suggested actions, and that's what producing the buttons that we can see. However, the buttons, they seem to be arranged horizontally, and what you find is if you type kind of a lot of text in, basically they scroll off the screen, and you have to kind of go backwards and forwards to see the buttons, which doesn't seem a very good way of working. This is where I want to introduce the concept of rich cards. So let's go and have a look at the documentation. Did I switch the bot off? Yes, I did. Okay. So rich cards basically are a way of displaying kind of graphics and buttons and a bit of layout really to back to the user. And what these rich cards will they will appear differently on what the channel you're using. So if you're using, for example, Slack, they will appear in one kind of format. And if you're using Skype will render them in its own format, but they'll always be consistent. We're going to actually use a more advanced form of card as well this evening. We're going to use an adaptive card. And adaptive cards, they're Microsoft's kind of solution to presenting information in a way that the client wishes to present that information, but define them in JSON. So it's kind of less it's more kind of giving the rendering of the card over to the client application. So the UWP app may render it. It might be Windows 10 that's rendering the card, or it could be any of the channels that we've talked about. So Facebook Messenger or Slack or Skype or whatever. So we'll look at all those. So over in our documentation, and the documentation is really, really good. For the most part, at least, it does seem to cover a lot of examples. It doesn't cover everything. And one of the frustrations you find is because this version 4 of the framework is so new, a lot of the examples and solutions to problems that you find out on the interwebs, on Stack Overflow, for example, they're actually for framework version 3. And as I said last time, actually Microsoft have completely rewritten the framework. So the framework is totally different now in version 4. So not necessarily is it that all of the solutions you find out on the interweb are actually applicable to version 4. Okay, so over in How To and under Develop, we can see that there are some, I believe there should be something about cards in here. Maybe there isn't. I thought there was. Maybe it's under Concepts. No. Samples. Let's look at the samples. I'm sure there's some samples on cards in here. You can see even this website has completely changed. So this wasn't like this before. Didn't have these columns and the view buttons on them. So here's using cards. Let's go and look at the .NET Core sample for using cards. And you actually, if you look carefully, you'll see there's a bots folder and a controllers folder, which we don't have. And this is going to be something we're going to be changing as we kind of move towards this structure for 4.4. But currently we're going to stick with what we've got. Okay, so cards. There's a cards.cs here. And you can see, this is using adaptive cards here, but here's a hero card. And the hero card is basically has a nice big bold title, a subtitle, some text. It can have images, it can have any number of buttons on it. And so what I thought we could do is to change over our menu, our initial menu, to use a hero card, which is one of these rich card types. There are other types of cards you can create. So there's a thumbnail card for images. There is a receipt card. If you're buying stuff, you can kind of summarize what's been purchased on a receipt card. It lays it out nicely. There's a sign-in card, which is used for authentication, so login card. An animation card for showing animations. A video card for showing videos. Audio cards for playing sounds. And that's probably all there is, but there's also we have adaptive cards. And adaptive cards here is what we're going to be kind of focusing on for the main part of the stream. But what I do want to do first is create a hero card to replace our menu. So let's have a look at that. So here it's just a type, so we can instantiate an instance of hero card and just fill in basically the properties, and we should be okay to go. Let's head back to our documentation again, and let's go over to our code. Okay, so here's the display menu async, and what we want to do here is instead of creating the suggested actions type, what we want to do is on our reply we want to attach the card. Okay, so let's create a card. So let's start up here. So our hero card equals new hero card. Okay. And we got a number of properties on this hero card. We have a title, and the title is going to be Dev Streams Chatbox. So if we could help if we put the so I'm not going to blame my keyboard, but my keyboard does seem to be mistyping. And if you remember I think when it was at the end of the Code Rush stream last Monday my mouse ran out of battery, so I'm starting to suspect my keyboard is low on battery as well. We're going to have a subtitle, and that subtitle is going to be what would you like to do. So it's basically this text here. Let's pop that in there, and then we're going to have some buttons. And the buttons basically is going to be exactly what we've got here. Okay, so there we are, there's our buttons, and we can now get rid of this suggestions. We don't need that anymore. Okay, so we create our reply, and we can create our reply without any text because we've got a subtitle saying what would you like to do. And what we need to do now is create an attachment for this reply and attach our rich card, our hero card, to that. So reply.attachments .add. Sorry, it's a new list of attachments. List of attachment. And we're going to add in, what do we call it, hero card. And our hero card has got an extension method on which is toAttachment, which we need to call. And that's all create it as an attachment within our framework. And now we can simply send that back to the turn context with this command here. And basically that replaces our suggested actions. That's pretty simple. So let's give that a run and see what happens. Currently we haven't defined what 1, 2, 3 and 4. We've put 4 of help. We may change that. Let's have a look at what this does. And you'll see that it kind of gives us a rather nicer kind of format. So let's restart the conversation. And you can see now we've got the welcome message here, and we've got our hero card. And it's kind of laid out. There's the kind of title, what would you like to do, and then there's the 4 buttons, and they're stacked buttons now, and they're the full width, so there's plenty of room for, if you've got fat fingers like me and you're on a mobile device, you can kind of push those buttons quite easily. You can also of course type, so if I type 2 here, then it's going to go into the dialogue for 2. Codebase Alpha, and then we're back into the dialogue, and up comes the menu again. So that's fairly kind of simple stuff. Okay, so we've got a nice kind of hero card now. It's not obvious what other options we've got under here, but basically we've got we can put text, so we can put explanatory text as well as the subtitle, and we can also put images on there. And we'll probably find some images to actually to display at some point, so it looks a bit nicer than just a plain white card, and that's what really makes it rich, I suppose. But this card has got buttons, it's got different types of text on it. And cheers everyone, by the way. Okay. So if we look in the rest of our code, you can see that in the on-turn async, we set up our variables here to control our dialogue. So we create a dialogue context, and we also look at whether this second line here, the continue dialogue async, determines whether we're in a dialogue or not, and whether we're actually kind of in the middle of one, at the start of one, or the end of one. And then we, in our menu here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and these are the options. So you can see number 2, we're starting this when next intent dialogue, and the rest of them we're simply starting the dummy dialogue. Dummy dialogue is down here. It simply echoes back you selected and what selection there was that was made. And then the rest of the dialogue, the when next intent dialogue, is kind of it's encapsulated here. So you've got two steps. You've got get streamer name and then get streamer info, and this is where we're going to do our query back to DevStream's GraphQL and actually produce the information that the user wants to see. But this is really kind of starting to pollute our chatbot box class. We're already 200 lines, and we kind of put in dialogue in here. We've got 4 more dialogues to do, and they're going to be multi-step dialogue, so it's kind of polluting our class really. We want to kind of separate out our dialogues into their own class, and we can do that. That's what's called a component dialogue, and basically all it means is a class that contains a dialogue, and the whole of the dialogue is encompassed within that class. So let's have a look at doing that, because we can then start to break out our class and start to refactor it to look a bit nicer. So let's create a folder, and we'll call it dialogues. And in here we're going to create a class, and we're going to call it when next dialogue. This is going to be the dialogue where the user says, please tell me when my favorite streamer, which is stream X, Y or Z, when they are streaming next. And what we're going to do is we're going to go off to DevStreams. We're going to find that information by using a GraphQL query, and we're going to display that information on the screen. But we're going to do more than that. We're going to say we're going to use a card, and we're going to say they're streaming next on this date at this time. Here's their schedule, and eventually we'll have a link to their Twitch channel, and we'll have their logo displayed on the card, and it'll make it look really nice. So when it comes back, it looks quite professional and quite neat to come back to the user. Okay, so let's go and have a look at our documentation again and look at component dialogues. So this is under reuse dialogues. So basically we're creating reusable dialogues, as it says. So in order to create a component dialogue, we need to extend the component dialogue base class. Let's do that. Okay. And we need then to bring in that namespace, which is the bot builder dialogues namespace, and then we need also to add the missing constructor, because all there is a constructor here. Okay. So as you can see, the constructor takes in a string, which is the dialogue ID, the name of the dialogue. So over in our chatbot, you can see that we call this dialogue the where next intent, So that's what we're going to be passing in, that this unique name for the dialogue, and that's what that dialogue ID is. However, that's not all we want to pass in. We're also going to be wanting to kind of set state in this dialogue. So what I imagine we're going to do is we start this dialogue, and in order to give useful information back to the user, we want to find out what time zone that user's in. Now in our Alexa skill, which we wrote 2, 3, 4 streams ago, we actually interrogated the Alexa device, the Echo or the app or the Echo Spot or whatever, interrogated the configuration of the user's configuration on that to find out what time zone they had set. But we can't do that here. Some channels, for example, I think Slack will return the user's time zone if they set it up, but a lot of other channels won't. For example, the web chat control, which we can embed into websites, that won't bring back the user's time zone. There's no idea, and a lot of other channels don't either. We can't guarantee that, so we're going to have to ask the user. And once we've asked the user, we don't want to keep asking them every time. We might have a menu option which will be set or change my time zone, but once the user's asked, given us their time zone once, if they use this dialog again, and we've already got that time zone, we're not going to ask them again. We're going to say, okay, we know that. We'll just go on to give me the streamer's name. So what the dialog's going to do, it's going to say, what's your time zone? And we'll figure out how to do that. And once you've got the time zone, we're going to say, which stream are you interested in? We'll find that. And then we'll go off to GraphQL and get the information about that streamer. And we'll convert all of the stream times in the GraphQL query. We're going to pass it in our user's time zone, and that will do all the conversions for us. So everything will come back in the time zone of the user of the bot, which is what we want. We don't want to faff around with giving them UTC types and then them having to work out, that that's actually past midnight or something for them. Okay. So what we need to do is pass in some state. We need to pass a state accessor in so we can update the state. And the state we want to change is this user selections here. And we've got an accessor here. So this basically is going to enable us to access this state. So you can see the type of this property is an iState property accessor type user selections. And that's what we want to pass in. So let's grab hold of that. In fact, we'll keep the whole thing and go over to our next dialog, and we'll create a public of that, and we need to bring that into that namespace in, and we're going to also then pass this in the constructor, and that's going to be we're going to have to pass that in. We can't eject it as such. That's going to be user selections. There we go. We didn't want to do that, did we? We'll simply set that in here. Oops. Okay, so now we've got a handle on the access to our state, and we'll use that later to actually kind of update our property and pass it out and then save it. In this case, to our memory storage, but ultimately it will be to blob storage. Michael Jolly, welcome to the stream. Lurking but very interesting. Thank you, Michael. But you feel free to lurk away. Chip in if you have any questions or any comments. But yeah, feel free to lurk. And yeah, it is pretty interesting stuff. The framework is pretty comprehensive, and I don't know how kind of far we'll get with this bot, but my kind of aim is to get some natural language processing in here. We'll also try and give the bot a bit of a personality. So if you start going off piste with your comments or your questions to the bot, that it will respond. It won't just say, I don't know what you're talking about. It will actually come back with some kind of human-like response. We can use Q&A Maker to do that. So we'll try and give our bot a personality by using that kind of feature. But that'll be for a future stream. We want to concentrate on really sorting out dialogues, really. Okay, so having done that, we need flashing code. Thank you very much for the subscription. That gives me a fantastic opportunity to use our new hype feature. Now, this is a hype which is very much in kind of in progress. But thanks to our great friend Fuelsnable, who did the work behind this with his shader code, I'm now going to press my hype button on my Stream Deck, and we'll see what happens. There we go. That's our kind of infinite alph hype, and hopefully it'll stay up long enough so we can see a bit more of alph on there. Yeah, it's going to wear out. Let's try that again so we can see more alph, because I do love alph. There we go. So thank you very much, Thrashing Code, for the subscription. That is awesome, I'm so pleased. FuelStable's actually been lurking there, and this is his shader code. So we're going to make it bigger when we can. I don't know what it did to the stream quality. If I make it really big, the stream quality kind of plummets during that actually showing. And so we need to kind of figure out why. But hopefully it didn't happen then with this the small window I've got set up there. Okay, so once again, thank you FuelStable for your work on that shader, and thank you Thrashing Code for the subscription. Okay, so where were we? Yeah, so we can go back to our chatbot here and have a look at the dialogues. So you can see we set up a waterfall dialogue here, and it's got these steps in it. Okay. So we can basically grab that and pop it across into here. So we're creating a new waterfall step array, and it's got some steps in it. And what we can do now is start adding that dialogue. So we're in a dialogue at the moment, so we use the add dialogue method here, and basically we're going to create a new waterfall dialogue. So this is doing basically what we did over here. New waterfall dialogue, you can see. In fact, we can just grab this code here and put it across. So when we're building up these component dialogues, basically, it's very similar to how we set them up in the chatbot. Okay, we've got a text prompt here, so we're going to want one of those as well, which is the streamer name. Add dialogue. So this is not so much adding dialogues, but adding the component parts of a dialogue. So the dialogue currently consists of getting the name of a streamer, which is this text prompt, and then processing that name in the info step async. Adron Hall, how did Thrashing Code just subscribe? I'm perplexed, as the account doesn't seem to exist. It's interesting. FuelStable subscribed. We're on the subscription. So thank you very much. Let's try some more hype, FuelStable, as it's quite appropriate. There we go. I think it's so cool that. Lots and lots of Alfs. That's quite a good one, actually. Lots and lots of him. Yes. So cool. Thank you again, FuelStable. That's really kind. I'm so pleased. Okay, so we've got our text prompt. Okay, and then we've got these two methods, and what we can do is pop across here. So we don't need these anymore. Don't need that anymore. And what we need is these two methods. So we can chop them out. Okay. And we can pop them over here. And we do cancellation token. System.threading. There we go. So all we've done really here is just kind of pull out the functionality that we had before into its own class. And we could actually reuse this dialog if we want to. Okay, so let's have a look what we've got to do here. Okay. So we've got a dialog set. We need to add our dialog into here. So under dialogues, we want to add a new where next. Now, do we want to do that? I'm not sure. Let's go and find out, because we need to instantiate it. Yes, I think that's what we do, but let's check, because it's important we get this bit right. Okay. So this is where it's changed. You can see they've got all these extension methods, the run method here, which we're not going to use for the moment. So so that's the user profile dialog. So they're doing a similar kind of thing. They're their user state. We do need to set up, I'm sure we need to set up our dialog here. So dialogues dot add first a new, we'll soon find out whether this is right. New and it was when next dialog. Okay, we need to bring that namespace in, and we're going to call it when next intent. That was the ID, and then we were also going to pass in our user selection state accessor. So that's our iState accessor. Oops, there we go. So you can see that's this user selection state is the iState property accessor, which we need to pass in. And we're missing a close your brace. Okay, there we go. So now here we can, when we launch our when next intent dialog, it should be this one that we're using, and it's the one that's now defined over here. Let's see, we don't have those methods anywhere in this class anymore. Let's kind of look over here. This seems to be in the wrong order, so let's just reorder this, just so that it flows correctly. So the first thing we do is ask for the streamer's name. The second thing we do is get the information. So let's just check that's still working. Here's our bot. Let's restart the conversation. Let's hit 2, and it asks for the name of the streamer. So there we go. So it's still working. That's wonderful. Okay, so now we can start working in this class. And what we really want to do is to find out the we want to find out the time zone that user is in. And there's an awful lot of time zones. If we go over to Wikipedia, time zone DB, we should get a Wikipedia entry for that. And where? Typically not. There we are. No, that's not what I wanted. Let's type in Wiki TZDB. As per such, thank you very much for the subscription. What a wonderful thing. We get to use our hype again. So I'm going to hit my hype key. If you wasn't able, this is going to be a well-loved feature. So let's see what happens with this one. We've got a long string of alphs coming into focus. There we go. Oh, it's going to disappear. Oh, there we are. They're all in lots and lots of different alphs there. Our little alien friend. He just disappeared towards the end. So thank you very much, as per such, for the subscription. That's really appreciated. So thank you. Yeah, TZDB. Okay, so you can see it's going to come with a list. Oh, it's not going to do it for me. It's got some examples here, but there's hundreds of them. There is one with a list. Here we are, list of time zone databases. Here they are. Look. So you can see it starts here and it just goes on and on and on. So presenting the user with a drop-down menu of all of these to select from It's going to be pretty naff, really. The Michael Jolly for the subscription. Thank you so much. More hype. Let's see what this hype is. Oh, it's lots of alpha in this one. I wish it was bigger. We'll really well work on making that bigger, making sure it doesn't kind of crash the stream. But yeah, 60 lines of shader code. FuelSnable can fill us in on how that works. So thank you very much, Michael, for the subscription. That's really, really appreciated. Okay. So what we'd like to do really is to ask the user for their country, so that we narrow down the number of time zones. Even in the US, which is probably one of the biggest kind of target areas for the bots, there aren't that many time zones. Probably 20 or 30, perhaps. I'm not sure, but we'll be able to kind of give the user a much smaller list. So what we want to be able to do is ask the user what their country is, store that in UserState, and then ask them for their time zone by narrowing that down so they only get the time zones for that country. So that's kind of the aim for the rest of the stream, really. I'll just check on my notes. Nothing else I missed. I think that's what we want to do. Okay. So how are we going to do that? What's the kind of user interface we're going to use to ask people to give us their country? We could ask them to type it, but we'd probably have to use some kind of natural language processing then to figure out what country it was. And I'm not ready to go to Lewis and natural language processing yet. So I want to kind of use cards to present people with options, so that we kind of limit what they can say. And we're going to use adaptive cards for that. So FuelSnable, so you're thinking maybe it drops the quality of the stream because there's too much intricate movement on the screen. I think that's what it is. It does seem on the recordings that I've made using the effect at full screen size, it just kind of everything pixelates. The image itself of the Alfs is fine, but everything else behind it pixelates something rotten, and it takes a second or two to actually unpixelate once the animation's finished playing. So that's why it's quite small at the moment. Could slow down the time so it moves slower. Yeah, it might. We could have some experiments, now. I'd love to kind of get it working so that it's so that we can make it fill the screen, because the transparency is quite nice on it at the moment. It does seem to work quite well, and it's a fantastic effect. I just love it. I don't think there's much else I've not seen. There's plenty of people with overlays with their emotes which fly around, like in Brendan's stream, but I don't think we've seen one that does kind of it's not Mandelbrot set, but something very similar to a Mandelbrot, is it? Julian set or something like that. Yeah, we'll get some experiments if you're stable at a mutually agreeable time, and then I'm sure we can get something working. But in the meantime, it's still fantastic, so we'll keep it as it is for the next couple of streams. Okay, let's go and have a look at adaptive cards. So if I type in adaptive cards, adaptivecards.io is where we find out about them. And an adaptive card, as I say, is basically a way of defining the layout of a card using JSON. And there's examples here. Here's ones with images for the weather. And you can see on different devices they appear differently. So here's one on UWP or .NET or WPF. Here's the same card displayed on iOS device, an Android device, and in the web chat. And they report differently, but we just sent the same. We sent them up exactly the same. There's lots of documentation here, which feel free to go and look. I'll just drop this into chat for you if you want to go and have a look at that link. But luckily, there's actually a card designer over here, so we can click on that. Basically, you can see that we've got kind of an arbitrary, complicated card over here. This is a kind of visual tree of all the controls that are on there, and it builds up this JSON. And we can create our new one, so hit new card. So what we want, we'll drop a container on there, onto our card. We create a container over here, and you can see you get a container in the JSON. Then we want a text block, and the text block's going to simply say, please select your country, and we can make that bold. We can make it large. Okay, so it looks like that. What else can we do? We can change the color. We can set it so it's centered. Looks nice. Okay, and then what we can do is pop in a choice set underneath that. The choice set, currently it's set to be radio buttons. And we've basically set the choices up here, so we can say here, USA, and that might be choice US, United Kingdom, yeah, and that might be GB. Okay, but let's spell it right, shall we? What we don't want is we don't want these radio buttons. We want what's called compact style, which is over here. That's a drop down. And you can see you can hit the drop down. Well, we can't necessarily test it very easily, but you can see that there's a drop down menu there now. And what we can do is we can grab this code. There's actually something over here called the classic visualizer. If we go over there and drop that code into there, our card appears and actually does work in this version. So we can select. Once we've selected that, we actually want to feed that back to our application. So we need to add an action. And there's three actions we can have on an adaptive card. There's to open the URL, not what we want to do. We want to submit I post back, which is what we do want to do, or we can show another card. So you can have cards within cards. So we can add an action submit there. This is going to be that. It's going to have an ID of time zone. It's going to have a title of submit. And that's probably all it needs. So if we want to go and grab this again, go over to the classic visualizer, drop this in instead. You can see we've now got a submission button. If we click that, it's submitted. It's submitted this. Okay, so that's all very well, but there's quite a few countries, and we don't want to have to type them all into JSON, have a massive JSON file, and then someone, there's a new country that's created, or a country is merged to another country, and we have to go and change it all. We want to actually have those choices created programmatically. So we don't want to create our adaptive card through JSON. We want to create that through the .NET framework. And there is a NuGet package called Adaptive Cards, which we can build in, and we're going to do that. What I have noticed through looking at the documentation is that it's lagging behind somewhat the kind of richness of the JSON. I think there are probably ways we can get around the lack of richness, but we don't actually need to do that tonight. You can see there are quite a lot. There's things like placeholder, and that placeholder property doesn't seem to appear in the Adaptive Cards .NET implementation. But I think there's ways around it to actually insert your own JSON components into there. But we're not going to worry about that now. So basically, what we've got is we've got a submit button. We've got a container which contains some text, and it also contains a choice set, and we're going to build the choices up programmatically. So let's see what we can do about creating that in our code. So I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this cards. These are going to be our adaptive cards. Okay, so let's create a new class in here. And we can call this class country card. So we're going to make a public static class called country card. Let's bring in the adaptive cards NuGet package into our solution. So we'll manage our NuGet packages. Interesting, what's the updates? You see they've moved on already. We're on 4.4.3 for all our NuGet packages. We shan't bother with that at the moment. So adaptive cards. And this is the one we want. This is the Microsoft adaptive cards. There's another one down here called Microsoft adaptive cards. This is not what we want. This is a deprecated library. They changed the namespace to just to be adaptive cards. So we'll have that one. This is the latest stable version. It was last updated in January 2019 and it's got 154,000 downloads. That sounds okay. Bring that in. Okay. So, okay. Let's create a method. Public static. And this is going to return something. I'm not sure what it. No, it's going to return an attachment. So let's say that to begin with. So remember that when we went over here for our hero card, the hero card was created here. We're actually attaching the card as an attachment to a reply, and that's what we want to do. And so this is a list of attachments, so we need to return attachment from our card factory basically. Let's bring that namespace in. That's the bot schema. We'll call this create. And we don't need anything passed in. Okay. Right, let's start building adaptive card equals a new adaptive card. Adaptive card using the adaptive card's namespace. There we go. Okay, what's it saying here? So this constructor is deprecated, obsolete. Please use the overhead that it's a version parameter. Specify the version your card requires. You're going to tell me what the overloads are. One. Adaptive schema version. Okay, so this is going to be a new adaptive schema version. What does that take? String or a major minor. So if we go over back to our website, you can see that it's version 1.0 of adaptive cards that we're using. So we're just putting 1.0 in there, I think. Okay, let's give us an adaptive card. And the next thing we did was to create a container to put our components of the card inside. So you can see here we've got a container. So let's do the same thing for container. A new container. Okay, it's not called container. Oh, it's everything's been put. The word adapt is in front of everything. Look, so here's all the various bits and pieces we want to create. There's an adaptive container there. Okay, so we create an adaptive container. So container dot. We should have. So let's have a look at the schema again. Container's got an items array. So is there an items dot items? There is. And we should be able to add to that array, which we can. And we want to add onto that array. Just checking there's no questions in chat. That's not what we wanted to do. We want to do this, don't we? So we're going to create a new, and it's going to be a text block that we're going to create. The very first element is a text block. And we'll try and set these various values up. So adaptive text block, no doubt. Yeah. So we've got text equals please select your country. I've got the old spell checker going to help me identify ridiculous spellings that I managed to type in during these streams. And then we've got what did we have over in the here we got horizontal alignment, size and weight. So we'll see what we got. Have we got horizontal alignment? We have. Equals what? Adaptive horizontal alignment dot center. Wonderful. So it's fairly intuitive. Weight is going to be adaptive text weight dot bolder. And what else was there? We had size of large and size equals adaptive text size, no doubt. Adaptive text size dot large. Okay, there we go. So we've got our text block attached into our container array, item array in the container. The next thing was our endpoint choice set. So what we want to do is create a choice set, and then we want to put our choices inside that. Okay, so we could say container items dot add, and we want to add a new choice set. Choice set input must be what we want. Okay, so that has a style, and that was compact. So that's when we get our drop down. What else do we have on there? So that was that's actually the default by the look of it, because it's not in here, but it was, we did set it. And placeholder text, we didn't set any placeholder text, but it would be good to have that. So let's see what else we got in here. Have we got placeholder text? We haven't. It's required though. We want that because they've got to enter it. Is that just a boolean? Is required. Is required is deprecated. Not yet. Not supporting adaptive cards will be ignored. Okay, fair enough. Bit of a shame. And we got choices, haven't we? So I wonder if a lot of these have been deprecated. this additional properties is what I think maybe we can use to add our own or any missing elements into the such as placeholder text, but I'm not sure. We won't try that immediately. So choices, and we're going to set that to choices. Oops. So choices is going to be a list of adaptive choices. So let's create that outside here. Oops. Var choices equals a new list of adaptive choice. Okay, so there's no choices at the moment. Misspelled container here. Let's fix that up. Okay, so what else have we got? That's basically our contents of the container, and we want to add that to the body of the array of the card, and then we want to put our actions in. Okay, so let's have a look. So adaptive card dot body dot add container. So that should create the body, and now we want to add in some actions. Adaptive card dot actions. We want to add an action into there because it's an array, because you can have multiple actions, so it's an action array. No questions about this in chat? No, maybe people have seen adaptive cards before. I hadn't seen them. I heard about them, but not actually seen them, so I was quite interested to kind of show you what they're all about, really. So we're going to add in a new. What is it going to be? New adaptive something or other, isn't it? New adaptive. Is it going to be an action? Adaptive action there, and there's adaptive submit action, which is what we want. And we'll pop that in, and then so what is on an adaptive action? So we've got a type and a title. There's some more things on there. We probably want an ID and stuff. I think we want some ID so we can pick, when we get a post back, we can pick some of these things out of the post back. So when we get our choice set, we're going to want an ID here, and that's going to be time zones. No, countries. Country. There's only one. And in here we want an ID again. Country submit. We want a title. It's going to be submit. We want a type. The type was action.submit, I believe. There it is. Okay, type. That's going to be equal to that. Okay. And we've added the action to the card, and then we want to save our attachment equals a new attachment. Oops. And when we create an attachment, we need to figure out what attachment is. Let's just hit a random key here. So it's got content and content type. Okay, so the content is going to be the adaptive card. The content type is going to be what? Let's go and have a look. That's the schema. We're going to have to search, I think. Let's go and have a look at our stuff over here, actually. Samples. Do we have adaptive cards in here? We do have adaptive cards. Card bot. Oh look, here's the content type here. So it's this application / that. Okay, we'll use that. Give that a go. Okay. So what we need to do next is to actually build this list of choices. I'll just return this attachment to satisfy our create method. Okay. Now, in order to get all the countries associated with time zones, there's actually a neat little NuGet package we can get, which is called time zone names. Let's go and bring that into our project. And this is what Brendan Enric uses over in DevStreams. So I'm basically going to use the same kind of concept. Here it is. So this provides localized time zone names. There's actually a NodaTime library here as well. But we're going to use this one. It's got more downloads. I'm not sure what this actually going to provide as well. I pretty much understand what time zone name is going to give us. Okay. So our country card, we want to use time zone names. Using time zone names. We need to build up our list of choices. So for our countries, so this is going to be, now in time zone names, there's TZ names is the main static that's in there, and you can get country names from it, and it's going to bring us back. What's it going to bring back? It's going to bring the ISO country name and their localized name. So is this going to expect us, can we get away without putting a language in there? We can't. It wants a language code. and we'll just try passing ENUS into there to get the countries. So now we're going to get here a dictionary of, I wonder which is which. We'll find out. We'll find out, won't we? So for each our countries, what we want to do is to our choice is going to be a new adaptive choice, I assume. Adaptive choice, yeah. And we're going to say that the title is going to be, one would assume that the key is going to be the ISO country code. So let's say the name is going to be the value. This is going to be country. We'll just swap it around if we have to. And the value, which is what we're going to store, is going to be country key. Okay. That should build us up that, and we need to then choices add choice. Do we want to? Let's see what it gives us. I'm not sure what the ordering is going to be like, unless we want it to be ordered nicely, alphabetically. But we'll just give it a go. So that's our country card creation bit. So what we want to do now, over in our dialog, we don't want to, the first step isn't going to be ask the streamer's name. The first step is going to be get users country. Async. Let's just grab this piece of code here and just do that in there. So what we're going to do, what's happening here is the step context, which is a context that knows what step we're on, gets passed in. That contains kind of information from the turn context, which we're able to access. You get a cancellation token as well as we async. And then what we can do in here, we can actually display our card. So just check my notes. I'd make a few notes how to do this because I think there's a bit of a wrinkle to adaptive cards. So okay, here he is. So this is notes. It tells me what to do here. Okay. So let's get rid of all of this code in here. So we want our card is going to be a country card. .create. That's going to bring us back our attachment. The card attachment, we'll call it. So we know that it's not actually a adaptive card itself, it's an attachment containing an adaptive card. Let's just fix the casing on this method. Okay, so we've got our attachment. Then we want to create a reply. So var reply is going to be now how you create a reply is over here. So we do a create reply. And it's not going to be turn context because we haven't got access to the turn context because we're in a dialog step. So that's going to be step context. activity, step context. I think it's just context, because that is actually the turn context within a dialog. Is step context.context is type I turn context. That's correct. We create our reply, and similarly we attach. So we've got attachments. That's going to be a new list of attachment containing card attachment. What's it complaining about? Schema, that's the problem. Okay, so we've got that. And then we want to display that. And we can display it in a very similar way to we do displays over here. So when we display text, we are sending an activity. It's like this. Yeah. So we can say to wait step context dot context, which is the turn context dot send activity async, and we pass in the reply and the cancellation token. What's it complaining about there? So reply is an activity. Is it saying wants an array? Really? I'll send activities. We want to send activity. There we go. Okay. Now, what I've read about this issue is that when we when the postback occurs, we've got to capture the postback in a different way than we do normal text, and also the dialogue doesn't kind of pause waiting for the user to do something. It just continues to the next dialogue step. As you can see here, we've got to return something. We've got to return the dialogue results. Well, what we've done so far is we've displayed our card as an attachment. There's a button on there which is going to post back, but we've not returned anything. We need to return something as part of this this dialogue, and it's got to be something which is basically a turn result. So we've got to return something. The question is what we're going to return. And what we can do is we can return a prompt which is blank. So it doesn't display anything, doesn't prompt for anything, but it's waiting there for something to happen. Okay, so this is going to be a text type prompt, and you can see from this line here we have to actually define all of the prompts that we're going to create for our dialogue. And this being a component dialogue, it's it's nicely encapsulated. So let's create a new text prompt. This is going to be called country. So what we want to do is we want to return. So if you go and have a look over in ChatBot, you can see when we're doing a prompt. I think I might have deleted it because we're doing something else now. What we do with the hero. Yeah, we need just need to have a look. So step context dot prompt async. There we are. Look, there. We need to return some kind of prompt, and it's going to be this country prompt here. And we need to give it some options. So when we look at the prompt async, you see you've got a dialog ID, and you've also got prompt options and a cancellation token. So we need to send in some prompt options, whatever those are going to be, and then we can also send in a cancellation token. So the prompt options. So basically, there's a type and a text on this. The type is going to be an activity type, and it's going to be a message. And the text is going to be blank. String.empty. So it's going to be kind of a dummy. Oh, sorry. This is not quite right. This is an activity we're creating here. Prompt options. So it's a new activity. Prompt options. Our prompt is a new activity. Let's start again. The prompt options is going to be. Sorry about this. It's a new. Nope. Not happy. So we should get good IntelliSense on this. Prompt, there we go. Prompt equals. This is going to be new activity. Prompt is of type activity. You can see there, if I hover over, you can see it's a typed activity. And that's going to be come on, tidy up. So it's going to be the text, which is going to be the string.empty, and the type, which is going to be our activity type. It's going to be our activity type dot message. What's it complaining about? Async method, so we need to await that, yeah. So that's what it's saying. Okay. So basically what's happening here, we're going to display our adaptive card, and then we're going to kind of have an invisible prompt. So we need to kind of intercept the post back, which is kind of a difficult part of this, but not difficult, but it kind of breaks from the model that we've been using so far, when a prompt actually is processed by our on-turn async method automatically. When we do a post back, we've actually got to reach into that post back and get the information that's been posted back to us. So it's a bit more like dealing with a piece of JSON that's been posted back, and we've got to kind of dig into it and interrogate it. But let's see, we've done quite a lot of typing without actually testing anything. So what we've done is we've created an adaptive card, it should list all the countries, and we'll get some insight on what the values and titles are on that that card. And then we've gone back into our dialog, and we've added an extra step, so initial step, to get the country, the user's country, using our adaptive card. So we'll have a look at what that looks like when we run it. So it doesn't build. Okay, so just missed a few semicolons off of it there, and that's it, I think. Come on, tell me where there is. That's it. Let's run it again. So let's see what we get. Let's restart our conversation in our emulator. Hit 2. Okay, so we've got no renderer for this attachment. How interesting. We've got our JSON okay, well, for it. Here's the JSON. And there's all of our countries, and it looks like it's correct, isn't it? We've got Afghanistan AF, etc. I wonder why it thinks there's no renderer for this attachment. That's a bit of a setback. Oh, look at that. Spaces in there. I wonder if that's it. Let's go and have a look at our code. Yes, there it is. So those spaces are not legal. Just a slash. Okay, let's try that again. Restart the conversation, press 2, and we get our adaptive card, and under here we should have all of the various countries we can select. There's still quite a lot, but there's an awful lot less than if we had to choose a time zone to begin with. We have loads of America and Europe and all that kind of stuff, and it would be really confusing. Now we can just go down and select United Kingdom and submit. So we've moved on. You can see that it stepped through. It did a post back activity here. Post activity. So we need to catch that and then interrogate the object that's been posted back to find out what country it was. So let's see how we do that part. So this one I did make a few notes on, having looked up some existing code, because this is not obvious. So let me find out where we are. Okay. And I do some preparation for these streams, and normally sorry, Surly Dev, I spotted a typo. Container. Have I misspelled container? Have I? Let's have a look. So what did you want me to? I think I fixed that one. Container. I think it's fixed. I think I spotted that one. Surly Dev. Thank you much for pointing that out, though. I do need to figure out some kind of way so that in stream you can get my attention, because sometimes I'll kind of get into full flow and I don't notice things popping up in chat, because it's not only is it outside my eye line, it's actually just under a bright light as well. So thank you for that. If you do spot anything else, Surly Dev, let me know, especially if it's not the same container as I've got highlighted here. So thank you for shouting out in chat for that. Okay, so I said I did look up this this during stream preparation, because I couldn't figure it out just by thinking about it, and I didn't really see an awful lot of example code for consuming the submit button result of an adaptive card. In fact, if we look at the adaptive card examples here, adaptive card samples, let's close these down. Yeah, is this the adaptive card ones? Yes, it is. These don't have submit buttons on them. They're all kind of display information type cards, which is great, but we want to submit. So I did have to look this up, and basically what we're going to need to do is to find the postback that's happened. Okay, so I'm just going to drop a breakpoint here. You can see in this line here we're actually grabbing what's called the activity channel data. This is the data coming back from what a channel is. It's the client basically. So what happens with the bot framework is that all of the clients attached to an Azure bot service, and that bot service basically takes feeds from those various channels and makes them into a common format called channel data. It also passes that common format back to the our bot passes that channel data back to the bot service, and the bot service takes care of changing that data into the format required by the individual channels. So channels are things like Messenger, Skype, Slack, all the various kind of things we can attach to the web chat control, all kinds of things. So if we stick a breakpoint here and run again, we should be able to intercept the results of our postback. So we start the conversation, hit 2. So we've hit here, but we're not currently displaying our adaptive card. But if we hover over channel data, you can see we've got a JSON object come back, and it's basically client activity ID, and it's some kind of long code number identifying the activity ID. We're not really interested in that, so we continue. So now we're going to select our country, and we'll select American Samoa and submit, and we hit our breakpoint again, and we can see what we've got here on the channel data is we've got, I don't know if you can make it out on stream, we've actually got postback is true. So it's here. So postback is true in the JSON that's come back. That means that rather than it being a normal kind of response from the user in the context of the bot, they've actually posted something back to us, and that postback has come through our adaptive card. So we're going to use that to our advantage. Okay, so we've got a JSON object here which has got our JSON in it. And what we need to say is if channel data contains key postback, so if we get that key in our channel, coming back from our channel, we know we've received a postback from whatever whatever client, whichever channel that we're dealing with, in this case the emulator. So we can say that this is from an adaptive card. Adaptive card postback. Okay, so then we need to basically convert that that postback. We need to grab the information that's in that postback, and that information, if we pop our breakpoint back here and run again, we should be able to find a drill down into our object and find out where that is. Okay, so let's start again. Hit 2. We can continue from that point. We're going to select Albania. Hit submit. Now here we are at our channel data. We know postback, it contains postback. So if we go down, we got our results here. And you can see there's the postback is true. We've got activity. We've got activity. So so we're not interested in that anymore. We want our channel data again. A turn context. So turn context, that's right, here we are. The turn context activity contains a value. And the value is country AL. Can you see there? Yeah. So it was in the turn context activity value where we had our country posted back. Okay, so maybe we can use that. So for our value was equal to turn context dot activity dot value. So that should contain the JSON object. Okay, and the value. So if we say that the activity, so what we need to do, we need to grab that and pretend the user typed AL into the bot. So rather than clicking on that that drop down, selecting AL and pressing submit, we need to pretend that what really happened was that user basically typed AL. Okay. So if the activity was that, then what we need to do when we're processing the user's choice of what they're doing, we're looking at activity.text. Okay, so that's what we actually want to populate. We want to say that activity.text is equal to the activity dot value. It's not quite as simple as that because that's a JSON object. It's got the word country in front of it. So let's see what we get when we pop our breakpoint in here instead. Bring up our emulator and restart the conversation and then we'll choose Algeria this time and submit. So have we hit our breakpoint? We haven't. Oh, that's because it's capital B there. Post back, there we go. Let's run that again. And restart a conversation at 2, and then we'll select Bahamas this time, just some variety. So we've now hit here. So our activity here contains the value of country and BS. So we're going to have to do this in a bit of a hacky way to begin with, aren't we? We're not going to be able to do this very neatly in terms of understanding what's So I think what we're gonna do, just to get this working, we're gonna do it in the hacky way, and I'll think about how we're going to. We need to extract. Yeah, we need to extract the right value, don't we? Oh no, we can send. Maybe we can send the entire string through and let our dialogue work it out. Let's just try that. Okay, let's just try that. This is where it starts to get difficult to follow what's going on, isn't it? Because we've got this text. We're inside a dialogue, so we won't go into this switch statement because dialogue turn status will be waiting. We'll hit with continue dialogue. That means we'll go to the next step in the dialogue. The next step in the dialogue is get streamer name async. Get streamer name async. What we're doing, we're getting the user selections from the user context, from the user state. We need now to pluck out of there the country that was sent in. And that's going to be, so var country object, country JSON, going to be, so this is, it's in step context.result string. So let's stick a breakpoint here and see what we get back in that variable when we run this. Let's bring an emulator up. Okay, and we'll select Ascension Island. Submit. We've hit here, and country JSON contains exactly what we hoped it does. So it's got our JSON object in there. So what we want to do there is to we want to cast that into a JSON object, don't we? So var country equals JObject pass country JSON. We'll just do it long. We'll do it in long steps to begin with, and then maybe we can shorten these steps down. But we can be able to debug the step-by-step approach a lot easier. And then, so I'm going to say if country dot contains key country, which it should do. For some reason, it seems to be not getting enough brackets in there. So if that is the case, then user selections dot. So we need to add something to our user selections. So this was going to be. We might as well add a couple of things while we're at it. So we're going to have country code. And time zone. Okay. So that we can then say that country code is going to be equal to. This is not particularly great naming. I think we need to tidy that up. Let's do this. Let's do that. And that's going to be country JSON. .toString. Yeah. And then we're going to save our. We're going to save the state, the user selection state back. So we got that that fixed. Okay. So let's just make sure that that all kind of works, and then we need to fix up this, because this is not really the next step. The next step has got to be actually to get the time zone. Michael Jolly, yes, you got your rocket, a green rocket. Isn't it pretty? There's a nice yellow rocket to come as well. I think it's yellow. Or is it orange? There's a different coloured rocket anyway. So with the sub badges, there's going to be a couple of coloured rockets, and then I can go into space stations or satellites and things like that. But as this is the first real rash of subscriptions I've had, which I'm eternally grateful to Chat for those subscriptions, then I shall start to look at some additional badges. So I've been ignoring Chat. There's not a lot of kind of conversation going on. Do feel free to kind of converse with each other while I'm kind of going on. But yeah, I'm pretty deeply into this at the moment, and I do want to get us to a situation where by the end of the stream we've got something which is pretty decent as a way of getting the time zone, which is kind of the objective of the kind of what we're trying to do here, is eventually get a time zone, and then we can reuse some of these steps to actually to work with the GraphQL endpoint that we've got over in DevStreams in a more kind of usable manner, especially as this is going to, if you remember what I said at the beginning, is that we're not going to ask the person for this information every single time. At the moment we are. Our get user country step is going to continually ask every time they select option, but we don't want that to happen. We want it to skip if they've already put that information in, and we'll do that in a moment. But let's run up our bot and make sure that we're actually, let's get rid of some of these windows that are open. Let's make sure that we're actually getting a country code into our user selections. Restart. Say baby steps with this stuff. When you're learning new stuff, baby steps. So let's have Guadeloupe. We've hit here, and our country code here is GP, which is the Guadeloupe country code. So that seems pretty good. Then it will go on to our streamer name, but we won't bother with that part. In fact, what we want to do next, we don't want to go on to streamer name. We want to actually go on to get time zone. Get users time zone step. And this is going to be extremely similar to this. So what we'll do is we'll grab this code, move it down here, get users time zone step. And we want to grab actually this code here, this user selection stuff, all of this, and move that into this step of the dialog, because the country is going to be coming from this step, get users country, and the next step is going to be get users time zone. So this will be time zone that comes out of here into get stream. This will be time zone, so we can TZ. Time zone is going to be time zone JSON. So that's actually going to be what we want in there. Okay, so here we're getting a country card. We want actually a time zone card at this point, and it's going to be we're going to want a time zone prompt That's our time zone prompt. Get time zone is going to be blah, 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 time zone. And we'll put all these kind of magic strings into constants as well at some point. We don't want to leave them as they are. So we need to replace this line with a new type of adaptive card, which is going to be pretty similar to this country card. So let's create a new static class in here. So time zone card, public static. Let's grab the create method out of here. And pop that into our card, time zone card. Let's just fill a few namespaces in. Time zone names. Okay. So now, please set your time zone. This is going to be get. It's going to be get time zone for country. There it is. Get time zones for country, and that takes in a country code and a language code. Okay, there's a country code. We're going to have to pass a country code in. And that's going to be used US English for the spellings. And then we're going to have our choices. So as countries, this is going to be time zones. So it's going to be interesting what we get here, because we actually want the same thing in both, I believe. Let's see what we get. Okay, sorry, just his choice. Yeah, choice. We want the value to be the same as the text that the person chooses, because it's the long. We don't want the ID. It's the long America/new_York or Europe/London that we actually want to bring back as our time zone. TZ submit. That really should take care of creating our new adaptive card, because basically it's identical to the last one. So here in our dialog here, we want to pass in a time zone card, and we need to pass in user selection country code into it, so we get our time zones. Okay, well, let's pop a breakpoint here and spell time zone correctly. Nobody spotted that one. We got a spelling mistake here, but I accept time zone with all lowercase will be fine. Let's give it a run and see what happens. Okay. Restart our conversation. There's a lot of white there. Let's get rid of some white. 2. Please select your country. Now we do need to do something about making sure people actually do select something, but we'll leave that part, the kind of error handling. We'll do happy path programming for today. So let's choose something reasonable. We know what the time zone is going to be. Let's choose United States. Submit. Please choose your time zone. These should all be America stuff. So interesting. These aren't the ones that I was expecting to see. It looks like these are the values, and we need to see. These are fine, but we need to actually see the key come back. So let's Eastern Time New York, submit. Here, time zone JSON contains Eastern Time brackets New York, and that's not what we want. So let's stop it right there and fix that up first. So in our time zone card, we actually want key. So we're going to split them around the other way around. The key is going to be our value, which is really kind of how it should be. Okay, let's run that again. Just make sure we get what I expect, which will be America /new York, and we choose the same time zone again. So restart a conversation. 2, and we're selecting United States. We're going to choose Eastern Time New York, and in here we should see America /New York, and we do. That's what we want. That's the time zone we want. Then that's going to store that then in our user selections time zone. Okay. Okay. Good. So what we've now captured in our user selections state object for this particular user. Remember that it'll be different for each user. We've captured their country and their time zone. What we want to do next is to make sure we don't ask them ask them what their time zone is if we've already got it. So what we can do there, we can say get this country step here. Before we create the card, we can get the user state, and we get the user state like this. So what we said, we're going to reach into our state accessor, getting async, passing the turn context. This function here is if the user selections state does not exist, return a default action, which is basically a new user section, a user selections object. So that should be the case the first time we come around. It shouldn't exist. Getting raided. Am I? What's happening? C# switch is handing over. Oh wow, that's very exciting. That's very exciting. Hopefully my raid alert will work and we'll be able to do some hype as well. A party of 64 from C# Fritz. Thank you so much for the raid. What an amazing raid. That's something very unexpected. Oh, I'm not myself. Welcome. Welcome to the stream. Let's have some hyperspatial hype from Alf, our alien friend. So here's some hyperspatial hype for you. Rambling Geek, hi. Hi, how are you? Chris Jones, welcome. Asterix. I don't think I've seen you in chat before. Welcome. Smabook, we've seen you before. Welcome. M Holloway 24, welcome to the stream. Can't quite read that one. Simon Gearing, welcome. Is that Daniel? Daniel Luden, welcome. Thank you so much, Ancient Coder. Carey, thank you for the bits. You're well in the lead. So yes, more hype. That's some more hyperspatial hype there from Alf. So this is a shader that that Fuel Snables created for us. Thank you for the follows, everybody. So that's Horvdan, thank you for the follow. Blackout TV, well, thank you for the follow. Stockholm, thank you for the follow. Wonderful stuff. So you're helping me speed on towards my my follower goal. I've had some nice subscriptions today, which is wonderful for you guys. So thanks for the raid, Jeff. Stockholm now following. So how am I getting on with Code Rush? Surly Dev asks. So yeah, I'm getting okay. My main issue is I sometimes forget to use it. So today, Ancient Coder, we're working on the Microsoft Bot Framework, version 4.4, the very latest version. Only came out last week, and I kind of struggled really because they changed all the documentation. Piece of Pizza, thank you for the subscription. Oh wow! Oh, more follows as well. We'll follow these when they come through. Thank you so much for the subscription. Let's have some subscription hype in chat. Here's our hyperspatial Alf again. So that's a follow from, oh, unfortunately it's so obscured. Let's follow from M. Holloway, thank you very much. Motown Andy, thank you for the follow. Daniel, thank you for the follow. So, Asterix, you changed from ReSharper to Code Rush yourself. So much yes, it is. It's faster. I love the templating. Thank you, Daniel. The templating is wonderful stuff. I've got lots of kind of custom templates for when I'm working on my my text adventure. But what I'm doing at the moment, I'm kind of concentrating so much on detail, and I'm not creating new stuff. I'm not creating new classes and things like that so readily that I'm tending to forget the Code Rush. What's missing? I don't know. I've not used it. I'm so excited about using it as it is that I haven't quite had time to think about what's missing from it. But if you've got any ideas what's missing, you know that Code Rushed Mark Miller, the chief scientist at DevExpress, he's a streamer. If you pop onto his channel and just feed back to him, they dog food the product 3 times a week live. So yes, certainly, Dev, try that. If you've got any ideas what's missing, you're a long time user, is that right? So I've only been using it a couple of weeks now, and so I've got it at work as well because it's an individual license, not a per installation license. So yeah, it's exciting stuff. And I've got my cheat sheet here with all the kind of shortcuts to the various types to auto create properties and methods, return methods and parameters. So yeah, it's as I say, my biggest problem is forgetting to use it. Okay, so where are we? So what we're working on is the Microsoft Bot Framework, Ancient Coder. To come back to your question, we're creating a conversational chatbot, and what we're doing at the moment is gathering information from a user about what country they live in and what time zone they're in, and then we're going to ask them what streamer they want to know information about, and then we're going to go off to GraphQL and bring back information from dev streams about that streamer, so when they're on next, what their schedule is and things like that. So it's a bit kind of analogous to our Alexa skill which we built several streams ago, but this is with working with the bot framework. So I'll give you a demonstration in a second, but I want to make sure that I kind of regain what I was trying to do there. Yes, Asterix, the cost of Code Rush for an annual license is in sharp contrast to the cost of ReSharper. ReSharper is a fantastic tool. There's no two ways about it. As a private individual, I can't afford to buy that license. I have it at work, and I'll use it at work because my company pays that license fee, but I can't. Yes, I'm using Visual Studio 2019 IH Developer. Yes, I am. So what we're going to do now is we've just pulled back the user state that's been set for this user, and I want to find out if we've already got a country noted for that user. If we have, we don't have to ask them again. So what we'll do is say if user selections dot country code if not string dot is null or white space is or white space. white space. If it isn't, so we've already got a value in there, then we can simply return step context. The step context is this step of the dialogue, so it's the context for this step in a multi-step dialogue. So that I'm not myself says Codebase Alpha, have you tried contacting JetBrains? I bet they would give you a license because you're a streamer. Well, it's quite possible. You've got to earn licenses for them for doing OBS. Oh right, that's interesting. So I didn't think of that. I know that that CodeRush it's a lot cheaper. Also, Mark Miller, if you watch his stream, he does give away copies. Astra6, thank you for the follow. Wonderful, absolutely fantastic. I'll give you some hype for that. I've not thought about doing that kind of stuff, trying to kind of use the fact I stream to get free product. To be honest, Daniel Luder, anyone using Rider? I don't know. I don't use Rider. I've never used Rider. I know that that DevChatter has used Rider. He's used it on stream a couple of times, but I've not seen it myself. So we're going to just get next async, which is simply the next basically skip this step and go to the next step. So what does it want? It wants something in here. It wants an await. And I'm going to grab this same piece of text. And pop it down here. What did I grab? I just want that bit. This is going to be time zone. So what should happen now is that we'll go through the dialogue once, and it'll ask us for a country and a time zone and our streamer. And the second time, if we're lucky, it won't ask us for the country or the time zone, it's going to ask us for the streamer we want. So Surly Dev, you're trying to get better acquainted with UserState 2017. Is that what your colleagues are using? Well, 2017 is absolutely fine. You can't compare it to 2019 as you've never used VS 2019. So Visual Studio 2019 is basically has the same kind of features, just more refactorings, but also it uses you can use more modern features. So you can use some of the latest bits basically for different products. So I don't use anything like that. I just use ASP.NET Core and .NET Core 2.2. So I'm not taking advantage of some of the features of 2019 at the moment. Was that Nuclear? Thank you for the follow. Thank you very much for the follow. Anyone not following? Oh, thank you. Yes, it'd be great if we could get only 18 more to get me to my target of 150 before my wife's birthday. So if you do feel like a follow, just hit that follow button for me, and you get notified when I'm on again. So we're on episode 22. So we've been going a little while now. Started in February, and hopefully kind of doing some topics which maybe other streamers haven't covered. So we've done an Alexa skill. We've done this look at this Microsoft bot framework. What will I do if I reach the follower goal? Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. I'll just move it on, I suppose, to 200. To be perfectly honest with you, I'm not going to do a C-sharp Fritz and dye my hair or anything like that. Surly Dev, so don't worry, nothing drastic. So you're going to Surly Dev, you're going to install 2019 previews. You want to try out Blazor. We don't need. I suppose you need 2019 preview for the latest Blazor bits, but you can try without, I think. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I could think of something, but I think really the special occasions are more going to be hitting kind of milestone stream episodes. So Core, has it been released? So Core 3 is still in preview, but there was some interesting news from Build. I don't know if you all... WK Walter, thank you very much for the follow. I'll just hit some hype for you there. I don't know if you kind of picked up on the story. I think it came from Build about .NET 5. Since CQ, thank you very much for the follow. That hypes for you as well. So .NET 5 is basically going to replace .NET 4.8, and it's basically .NET Core version 4. It's the next version of .NET Core, and there's only going to be one. There's not going to be two frameworks anymore. It's all going to be called .NET 5. It's basically going to be the next of .NET Core, and then it's going to be released. They're targeting November 2020 for that, and then annually there'll be another release. So 2021 in November there'll be .NET 6, and then .NET 7, .NET 8, etc. So that's a very interesting kind of move from Microsoft there. So I'm very excited about that. There's going to be one framework and not two. And you know, .NET Core is it's just so good that I'm glad they've kind of decided to kind of just roll that everywhere. Anyway, let's get on with this. Let's give this a go, shall we? Rambling a bit there. One framework to rule them all. Yes. One framework to bind them. Let's hope not the rest of that poem. Okay, let's try. So we're in the first time round. We're going to be asked our country, and we'll select Costa Rica, because that's where Mark Miller lives. Time zone is Central Time. We'll submit that. Enter the name of the streamer. It's going to be Code Rushed. And then basically it simply returns you selected Code Rush. That's the point where we'll go away off to GraphQL and get information about Code Rush stream. Now it's asked that we're back in our hero card again now. So let's hit. So if just to point out, if people are kind of just join the stream really, that these please select your time zone and please select country. These are adaptive cards. So if you've come across the term adaptive card, this is what they are. They're very simple ones. They've got no kind of graphics on them. But basically, these are cards which get rendered by the client, and they get rendered however the client wants to render them. So this is how this emulator's chosen to render them. But if you're on iOS, it could render them completely differently. Or if you're on Android, or if you're in a UWP app on Windows 10, it could render them differently. So Skype as well. So this is the bot framework. Basically, is a way of getting bots into what they call channels in the framework. So these channels currently include things like Facebook Messenger, Slack, Skype. There's a web chat client as well, and there's about 11 different channels, as they call them. So this is what we use to create these conversational chatbots. So we're going to hit 2 again now, and now it's something went wrong. Okay, so we've got an error here. So let's restart the conversation and let's pop some breakpoints in. So we want a breakpoint here and a breakpoint here, and let's see what goes on. So it's going to be something about getting this user state back, I suspect, but let's give it a go. So let's restart our conversation. Hit 1. Hit 2, sorry. Oh, restart conversation. Oh, we seem to be in a bit of a state, so let's close that down. Oh, we've hit a breakpoint. Okay, that's foolish me. Let's start it again. Okay. Since I've closed my emulator down, we have to reopen it. We type in the URL and then API/messages. This is our endpoint for the client. So basically the client is a Teams as well, Surly Dev, yes, definitely in Teams. The client sorry, the bot framework API we're using is simply a .NET Core web API, and it's got middleware in it, and the middleware terminates at our chatbot. So that's all it does. There's no controllers at the moment, although with 4.4 they've changed the structure of projects, how they suggest you do the projects, so that they do include controllers. But yeah. So does ever can foresee some mischief at work? Yes. A lot of fun to be had with this. Okay, so we've hit this and we've come into our get user step. Kabaisus, thank you very much for the follow. That's much appreciated. We're really kind of powering towards the goal now, so thank you very much for everyone who's followed today, and especially for the subscribers. Thank you very much to those. So that's null. So we can see this is a feature of CodeRush. This is the visual debugging. So we've got false. We know that it's not going to go into this step before we just by glancing at it really. Notice it say false there. It's de-emphasized this next line, so we know that it's going to skip over that. Into our country, we're going to say Australia. So we've hit here. This is false again. Once again, this line's de-emphasized, so we know it's not going to go into those brackets. We continue, and then we're going to select Central Western Time. And then we're going to type in Gareth Hubble. If you don't know Gareth, oh, interesting. Name of the stream, it's come back with that. SourceScoot is raiding with a party of 2. Thank you very much for the raid, SourceScoot. Let's have some alfs in chat. And we'll hit the hyperspace button here, and let's have a hyperspatial alpha as well to defend the code base. Arm the railguns ready to repel borders. But I think SourceScoot's a friendly raider, so we'll stand down the railguns and let you in. So welcome people raiding from SourceScoot. So it's interesting. We seem to have persisted this time zone here. Okay, let's start the conversation again. We hit here, that's false. Bang. Select our country, we're going to select Australia. Submit. We should now hit here, we select Australian Western Time. Submit. What's the name of the stream we're interested in? And we said Gareth Hubble. So now it came back correctly and just repeated Gareth Hubble, where it's actually going to go off and get information for us about Gareth Stream. As I was to say, if you don't know about Gareth Stream, he does F# and C++. It's really good stuff. So I recommend if you haven't caught Gareth Stream, I'll give a shout out to Gareth. Do catch his stream. He streams 3 times a week. I think Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays kind of springs to mind. But that's what this application, this bot, will actually help us with. If you just go to that link that I posted there with my shout out, SullyDev, you'll find him. He does have a name. It's Hubble Bubble Toil and Trouble or something like that. But I just know it as Gareth Hubble really. So now we're going to hit 2 again, and here it's true. So we're going to step into there. We're going to return. We're going to get next async. We hit this one here. So time zone is already selected to be Australia and EU CLA, whatever that is. So we're going to step into here. We're going to skip over that one, and it says something went wrong. Okay, so let's have a look. So I think the error is not going to be there. It's not going to be So we want that when next. It's not going to be there. It's going to be in the get streamer names. It's going to be in this part here. So let's pop a okay, I can see what it is. So we need to skip over this as well, don't we? So if we grab that. What we need to say, if it's null or white space, we want to do this bit. Okay, otherwise we've already got that information. We don't need to set the time zone, and we go straight into the prompting for the streamer name. So that should I believe I edited that then, so it shouldn't have let me do that. Let's give it a go. Yeah, certainly Dev, Gareth's stream is excellent. He does lots of different things. He does unusual things. So he's done Rust, he's done a lot of F#, and he's doing C++. He's writing a bot in C++ at the moment. He also does kind of, I think on his Sunday streams, he just kind of a from scratch kind of episode where they build something from scratch, or they look at something which is, you know, a bit kind of out there, which is quite nice. It's very different. Okay, restart the conversation. Now we've hit here, and we'll select Australia again. Now we select our time zone, which we'll choose, I don't know, Lord Howe time. God knows what that is. And now we're going to enter in C# Fritz as he raided. Okay, now we're back at our menu, so we select 2 again, and it should just ask for the streamer. So it's remembered our time zone. That's kind of where we wanted to get to at this point. It's remembered our time zone. So when we go off to GraphQL, we send our time zone. It's going to come back in the time zone that we asked for. All the information, so when the next stream is and what the schedule is, all going to be in our local time zone that we've asked for. We're having to do this because we can't guarantee that the channel that we're using actually is going to send us the time zone of the user. Some channels do. I think Slack might do. Some channels won't do. On the Alexa skill that we built, we could interrogate the Echo device or the app that was actually being used by the user and say, tell me your configuration, tell me what the user set your time zone as. We can't do that guaranteed here, so we have to ask. But what we are doing is we're persisting that in UserState, and the UserState follows the user around. So no matter what device they interact with the bot on, that state, once they've set their time zone, they won't have to set it again unless they ask to. So it's kind of a once only question most of the time. So we'll put in here source scoot. There's also a raider, and we're back, so we set his source scoot. So in the next stream we'll actually build out some of that functionality to actually go off into GraphQL and get the information from dev streams. Skull Crusher, thank you for the follow. Thank you very much. So I'll give you some hyperspatial hype here. This is something our friend a Fuel Stable did for us, and I've got under a Stream Deck button here. So this is our alien emote Alf, and it's kind of being displayed in an infinite variety of patterns. I thought that's really cool. So that's our kind of hype screen. Okay. So that's our that's the basic of our dialogue complete. That's our first dialogue. So to summarise what we've done so far today, we've pulled out our when next dialogue into a component dialogue class. Darksaber32, thank you very much for the follow. We're certainly on the follow train today, so thank you so much. You don't know how much I appreciate the follows. It's fantastic, so thank you. It's really great to get support for doing these live coding streams. It was a bit of a risk to start doing them, and I say I've got a blast. I've had a blast doing them. I'm glad that people enjoy the moves to follow. So thank you. Yeah. So what we do, so with this this component dialog, now we've pulled out the steps for one of our menu options, and the menu option we can fill in now. The menu option, which is this option 2 here. The very first thing we did to the stream was build a hero card, and option 2 was going to be find out when a streamer is BG Ricky, thank you very much for the follow. Wonderful, thank you so much. Not seen you in the stream before, but so many new people have raided today that I'm glad that you got the opportunity to see what I do. It's something a little bit different, perhaps, that other people might do. It's certainly more coding, and some streams they do hardware. Some streams do coding. I'm definitely on the coding, though. I'm really tempted to buy a Raspberry Pi, but I haven't got a project for it yet. But I would, if I did get one, I would concentrate on the coding side of the Raspberry Pi rather than building the hardware. So find out when a streamer is broadcasting next. That's the basic option there. And what I thought we could, rather than 4 being help, we could actually have reset my time zone. And one will be something like find out who is live now. Who is live now? And 3 would be discover live coding streamers who stream things I am interested. So these names might be a bit long. We'll find out in a sec when I run it up. Let's have a look and see how terribly long and destroy my layout and my hero card that those text titles are. So it's not too bad. It fits on. So discover streams who stream things I'm interested in. We probably need to be a bit more succinct about what that is. So discover streamers who stream things I'm interested in. Live coding streams. Covering things I'm interested in, perhaps. Let's try that. Covering things I'm interested in. Well, it fits. We can kind of play around with those. Silly Devs, this is basically a bot to help find other streams. Yes, it is. They're going to list some technologies to choose from. Yes, that's the idea. So if you're familiar with DevChatter's DevStreams project, which he develops on his stream currently, it's a community website where live coding streamers can go in and set up their schedule, tag their streams with the subjects that they so the programming languages that they use, the frameworks that they use on stream, and the language they speak on stream, and maybe other things. They kind of tag themselves on there, set up their schedules. It creates a calendar, and then you can download that calendar, put that into your Outlook if you want to. That's the idea anyway. I then built a GraphQL endpoint for that project as a PR and put that in. So there's now a GraphQL endpoint which we can query. There's another PR with some more changes to that endpoint specific for this bot. I then built an Alexa skill, which means you can get your echo and you can say, Alexa, ask live coding who's streaming next, or who's live now, when is C# fit for streaming next. You can ask that with your voice. That's a voice interface. So this is an extension of that kind of project, really. So now we're going to build a conversational chatbot, but we're going to do a few more things with it. So we're going to make it a bit chatty. So we're going to put some natural language work in there, so it can kind of understand some English phrases. We're also going to give it a personality. So we're going to use Q&A Maker to give the chat box a personality. So at the moment, if you type, if I go in here and I type 5, it just says please select menu option. If I said I think you are funny, then it just says that. So we want it to come back with something, we can give it a personality, either ultra professional, or it could be friendly, or it could be comedic, and we want to do that, really. So just so it's a bit different. Okay. Reset my time zone. So that's, we can probably get that done pretty quickly before we end the stream. So let's have a look at doing that. Okay, so under our dialogues, we want to create a new dialogue. So we'll add a class into there. This is going to be set reset dialogue, set reset time zone, set time zone dialogue. Okay. Oops, let me get the spelling mistake straight away. Okay. And we're going to be extending component dialogue. Just like we did before. And we'll create the constructor. Okay, so let's go and pinch a load of stuff out of here. So we want to pass in the same state property accessor that we did before. So this is what's going to get us a handle on our user state. And the very same way we can have our property. And this is where CodeRush would come in really useful. So SurlyDev, am I going to list the technologies to choose from? So the way it's going to work, let me go over to GitHub. Okay, so the way I'm envisioning it working, so if we go to dev streams, issues, I put this issue in, add a tag type property to tag. So I also gave an example. So this is an adaptive card which we will create on stream. So what it will do, it will list out the programming languages, the stream languages, and the frameworks you have to choose from. But it won't list all the tags that are available. It'll only list all the tags that are actually being used. So that if nobody does Rust ever, then Rust wouldn't appear there. It's only there because Gareth Hubble does Rust and F# and C++. If nobody chooses French as their streaming language, you won't get to choose French because there's no point choosing it because nobody uses it. So this will be a kind of a adaptive card which is truly adaptive. It will adapt itself to the data it pulls back from GraphQL. So that's how it's going to work. So there's long lists of tags that have been created. There's only a few kind of example streams in the system at the moment. Okay, so that's what we're going to be. So we'll be able to choose that, and it'll then list out all the people who use that. It'll give you the their schedule when their next stream is, and maybe I hope to get a URL and a logo and all that kind of stuff. But that's all to come. Okay. Yeah, so that's what we're aiming for. Yeah, I think it will be useful, and obviously what we'll do is we'll try and get this this bot published up onto Azure, and people will be able to kind of add it to their channels in Slack or whatever. Okay, so let's go in here. So we want to set our user state. What we can do is probably grab a load of this stuff at the moment. Let's just do some copy paste development. So time zone steps, and basically it's just those two, isn't it? This will be set time zone intent. We don't need streamer name. The idea we're going to be reusing these names, but actually the code is going to be slightly different. So we're not going to refactor at this stage, but we could well refactor to reduce the amount of kind of shared repeated code. But we kind of refactor when we find the need to, rather than just now. We're going to get it working first. So that the whole kind of ethos of what we're doing really is to take baby steps. So we don't need to do any of this this stuff anymore, because we are setting or resetting. So we're always going to overwrite. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do that. And that. And that. And that. Lots and lots of usings. I think there's some down here. What we got down here? Blah, blah, we don't need to get that at that point. But here we don't need that anymore. We can get that information there. So here we pass that in, and then we need a confirmation step. Okay, let's just grab that. This is going to be no, we don't need any of that stuff. Over on our when next dialog, we want this piece of code here, which is going to be what we fill in our time zone into our user object with, and then here then we want to end the dialog. There we go, so that's the end of the dialog, and this is going to be the confirmation step. And we're going to just write back to the user. No, we don't have to reply. What is it called? It's a it's over here in the next dialog. Let's say send activity. There it is. You selected. Time zone. So user selections.time zone. Okay. So I believe these should be okay to be the same as in the previous dialog, because we're in a component dialog, so it should be okay to repeat them. So let's give that a go. So over in our chatbots here, on 4, rather than beginning the dummy dialog, we want to start the set time zone intent, and then we need to go up here and register that dialog, and we do it exactly the same as there. This is, I think we call it set time zone dialog, and this is of type set time zone dialog. Okay, so that's we'll begin that dialog at that point. So let's try this out. Okay. Use that emulator. Let's restart the conversation. Let's do this one. Looks like something went wrong. Okay. Let's see what's going wrong. So are we actually, just make sure we've got all this right. So we're sending a new set time zone dialog, a set time zone dialog. Oh, it's intent, isn't it? It's called intent, not dialog. That was time zone intent, yeah. That's the problem with that. Let's try again. Restart the conversation. That one. Select your country. Bahrain. So we've hit an input choice set must have at least one choice defined. Oh, interesting. So Bahrain perhaps hasn't got any time zones. Is that it? Okay, let's try again. Not choosing Bahrain. So that's going to be if that's true, that's going to be a wrinkle. So let's choose one we know has. So we chose Australia before. Let's continue with Australia. Where's Australia? There. Okay, so there's something that's gone wrong there. So let's have a look what's gone wrong. I think we're just not persisting the time zone properly. Okay, so it's going to be in our set time zone dialog where the issue is. So here we've got our, so we're not persisting their selection. Is that the problem? So we've got there. No, we've pulled it back here. They've come through here. They've dropped into the get time zones. Okay, well, let's stick a breakpoint here. Try again. GraphQL, Skull Crusher, yes, I love GraphQL. I did I think 4 or 5 streams about GraphQL, starting from just from me learning GraphQL from the very basics. It's very instructive, and I really enjoyed doing it. So do check out those on Video on Demand or on YouTube. So I archive all my streams to YouTube. Let's pop the YouTube in. do pop over there, and it'd be really great if you could subscribe on YouTube. It's free. It just helps me build up some support on there. Okay, so we're going to hit 4. We're going to select Australia. We're going to submit. We should hit here. So have we saved our country? It hasn't saved it, has it? Oh, we haven't set it, that's why. Okay, well that's easy to fix. So we need to say here is user selections country code equals, and then it's going to be it was going to be so we needed K Van Orden. Thank you very much for the subscription. What a fantastic person you are for subscribing. I really appreciate that. That's absolutely amazing. So thank you very much. Here's some hyperspace hype for you. This is all kind of a mathematical representation of a set with Alf, our alien friend. So you're going to get access to our emotes, so the Alf hype emote. And if you type a message into chat, you should have a nice rocket as your badge. So Skull Crusher, my VODs last for 60 days anyway, because I subscribe to, is it Turbo? Nitro, I can't remember which one it is. So they do last a long time anyway, but they get archived. The 24 hours after broadcast, they get archived to YouTube anyway. So they're in both places. So we need to go back to our next log and pick the code from there, because it could be that they didn't choose them, and we need to protect ourselves against that. But we need to go and code something which will handle the fact that they didn't choose anything. Okay, so it should run now. Restart. Time zone. Australia. Time zone. Eastern Australia. So we now set our time zone. If we now see, the problem, it hasn't gone back to our it's interesting, it hasn't gone back to our menus, so I need to figure that one out. So if I type anything in there, it should bring our menus back. So now we should have persisted our time zone, and we might kind of print that out in the top or something like that. If I select this, now it should ask for the streamer, and the streamer is going to be I don't know, Clark here. So there we are. There's a few little wrinkles still to sort out, but we've basically done what I wanted to do on the stream, which is great. So all the source code we write on the stream is on GitHub. So let's post all this stuff that we've done today into our repo. It's all open source. You can go and look at it. You can go and do whatever you want with it. The bot, the Alpha bot, is up there as well. The Alpha bot is not running in chat at the moment. We've got Nightbot as our moderator, and we've also got CloudBot running, but AlphaBot's not running it. It's currently only running in Slack and Discord, because we're still developing our text adventure. And the text adventure we kind of develop on odd stream every now and again. It's a reproduction, a recreation of the classic text adventure Colossal Caves from back in the 70s. It's quite an interesting kind of little project to do, but I don't want to do lots and lots of text adventure streams one after the other, so they're kind of interspersed between other streams. So this is episode 22. We'll commit those changes, and they'll sync them up to GitHub, and they'll be available for you to look at should you so wish. And I'll just let you know that the next stream will be on Wednesday. It's an early stream, so it's at 4 o'clock UK time. That's 3 o'clock in the afternoon UTC. And then we'll stream again next Monday. So that's the next stream we're planning. So let's see if we can find someone to raid. We might find it difficult to find anyone, but we'll give it a go. So if anyone's got any suggestions in chat who they'd like to raid, then do let me know. So who's this? Adron Hall. So we raid Adron Hall then. I think we'll raid Adron. Obviously, he did appear in chat earlier, so it's just as well we've turned the favour. So Adron Hall. We're going to raid in. So thank you very much for everyone who watched, for everyone who followed, and a special hyperspatial hype for everyone who subscribed. Thank you very much. The emulator was the bot emulator, which comes with the framework Skull Crusher. So you download that. It's 4.4 is the latest version, I believe. So make sure you get the latest version. So now going to raid Adron Hall. Say thank you very much for watching. Really do appreciate all the support I've had during this stream. It's been fantastic. And do stick around for Adron, who does some fascinating stuff. So good night everybody, and we'll see you again on Wednesday.